Hey team, Mike here, Dr. 40 Fitness and Dr40Fitness.ca. Want to rant real quick with you. It won't even take 10 minutes, but it's about OMAD. And if OMAD is the right diet fasting regimen for you, I should say fasting regimen, it's not a diet regimen. OMAD, as you know, being one meal a day. It's very popular, and every day in the Facebook forums and social media, people talk about the difference between 16 and 8, 16 hours of fasting and an 8-hour eating window. I'm partial myself to 18 and 6, getting my 3 meals in a 6-hour window. There's 20 and 4, and then there's right to OMAD, 1 meal a day. So think about that for a second. There are people who, by far the majority of people who practice OMAD will just eat dinner with the family. Yes, you can just have a breakfast, could be your 1 meal a day, a nice big hearty lunch. But generally speaking, you would guess that the majority of people, the abundance of people are going to be eating family dinner with their family and calling that their OMAD. So it is a common theme that people say, how many calories do I need to eat? How much food? And in principle, you need to hit your targets. You need to hit your macros. You definitely need to hit your protein target for the day in an OMAD structure. And fats as well, right, to close the gap. And then you have to decide. I should backtrack real quick. The question is what you eat when you do eat on OMAD, right? There's obviously being a keto guy for 3 decades, right? Atkins right back to the early 90s. I'm partial to eating keto when I eat keto, so as very little or as few carbs as is physically possible. I don't mind telling you this, by no means obligatory. There are many people who eat high carbs, pizza, burgers, and ice cream. What you eat in OMAD is your call. OMAD just refers to the timing. All right, really interesting. However, the goal is to get all your nutrients, your macros, especially protein. Oh my God, right? And I'm going to put a link down to a video below on why I personally no longer do OMAD. I did OMAD in 2015, 2016, and I lost quite a bit of muscle. I get DEXA scans done, and I can go in twice a year, pay $100 and get a DEXA scan done. And I did that before OMAD, and 2 years later, I just happened to go back in and thought, I'm going to check and see what my fat content is, and I had lost, if I recall correctly, it was like 7.5 pounds of muscle. Now that's working out, that's focusing on protein, but that's eating OMAD. And I realized no matter how good my regimen is, no matter how muscle sparing ketones and GH and IGF-1 are, I just proved I lost 7.5 pounds of muscle in 2 years, despite working out, despite lifting heavy, and focusing on protein when I eat. And I realized I can't do OMAD anymore. And I did a video on that I'll put below. And the whole content is around how you can't get enough protein. You are spending too much of the day in a negative nitrogen balance if you eat OMAD. It's inevitable. And yes, the ketosis that kicks in, especially if you eat keto when you are eating your meal, that is muscle sparing. It's not muscle proof. You've never heard anybody ever call keto or fasting or OMAD muscle proof.
Here's what's going on. There's no way that you're going to be able to consume enough protein to actually maintain muscle on a ketogenic diet while doing an OMAD fast. Like, you just will not assimilate that much protein. It goes against all the laws that we've seen. Like, we cannot absorb that much protein.
This is from a study, and in the study it made the comment that somewhere between 20 and 30% of weight loss is muscle in any traditional diet regimen program. Like, I'm talking like the Jenny Craig and the Ornish and the Zone and the Weight Watchers. 20 to 30%, if you've ever done one of those, 20 to 30% of your weight loss, of your total weight loss, is muscle loss. I mean, think about that for a second. For every 10 pounds you lose, somewhere between 2 and 3 is muscle. Well, I don't mind telling you, that's self-sabotage. That's going to affect everything about your metabolism, your longevity. Right? One of my favorite research scientists into protein, her name is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She's notorious and popular for saying that muscle is the organ of longevity. Muscle is the organ of longevity. Well, then you and I, we can't afford to lose any. And despite working out and focusing on protein, OMAD cost me. It took me all of like 2018 and 2019 to earn that 7.5 back. So I'm not a fan of OMAD. However, what drove the video today is, if you're like me and you don't want to go OMAD, what's the option? Well, at a minimum, it's 2MAD. At a minimum, it's got to be 2MAD. However, I'm partial to time-restricted feeding in a 6-hour window, 3 meals. So in my 18 and 6, in my 6 hours of feeding, it's a meal, a protein snack in the middle, and a meal. And that is the most amount of fasting I personally do. I shouldn't say that. I periodically do extended fasts. I like to take the odd Monday off where I don't eat Monday. From dinner on Sunday until lunch on Tuesday, nothing. About a 40-hour fast. I'm partial to that, but that's no food. Then all the protective mechanisms we talked about, ketones and GH and IGF-1, all kick in. right? I don't fear muscle loss then. All of those safety mechanisms turn off the moment you spike insulin and mTOR. They're gone, right? You know that. As soon as you feed yourself, as soon as you spike insulin or mTOR, then those safety mechanisms go away because now they understand that they're getting nutrients and we don't need to save and preserve muscle and metabolism because you're feeding. Okay, so think about that. Then OMAD, you get this burst of insulin and mTOR, protein and fat, and depending if you're a carb eater or not, carbs, right? You spike all these insulin and ghrelin and leptin, all get a jolt, and then right away back to fasting again, and it takes a while for those safety mechanisms to kick back in. GH and IGF-1 take a while. In fact, depending on the study you read, somewhere between 12 and 16 hours is when they ramp up, meaning in that period of time, there's no protection. So here's where I'm going with this. So that's kind of the context around what drove this video was, I'm like, if you're like me at all, you can't afford to do OMAD, and A, think you're going to keep your muscle, never mind B, grow any. Don't think for a second you can be anabolic. In fact, that video down below, I'll show it to you. All right, I'll prove it. I'll also put one down, another video that I really enjoy doing on protein distribution. So that if your goal is to add a couple of ounces this year, if you'd like to add a pound of muscle in 2021, then OMAD really is out of the question. So you must maximize your opportunities to maximize muscle protein synthesis, and that requires multiple jolts or boluses of protein throughout the day. And my video on on protein distribution will deal with that in spades. Now, what actually, again, getting back to what drove this video was I saw something really cute. And you OMADers who follow Dr. Berg, every now and then, Dr. Berg, make no mistake, a great guy, great chiropractor, I'm sure back in his day, that he gets to keep the doctor title while talking about things that are not chiropractic, that kind of amazes me, but he's earned it, so God bless him. But every now and then he does something or says something that I find really funny. And so this one here is on a video he just did yesterday on what to do if you can't get all your food in one meal. What should you do? Now, my answer to that is go to OMAD. Go to a 20 and 4 window. 20 and 4 is called the Warrior IF, the Warrior Fast, and you can fit 2 meals in a 4-hour window, right? One, and then 4 hours later have the other, and then you can do a 20 and 4. So that to me, OMAD is obvious. And so what he's going to describe now in this clip I'm going to share with you, to me is OMAD. But have a look at what he says about breaking up OMAD into 2 meals. Have a look at what he says right here.
Some people that do OMAD have a very difficult time consuming all this food, enough calories in one sitting. So this tends to break it up.
Interesting, right? So I don't know why he calls that 1.5. I mean, as soon as you spike in any way, shape, or form insulin and mTOR, you've had a meal. He even put on the board, did you notice, meal 1, meal 2? But calls it a meal and a half. So somehow having that second meal at 6 p.m., 5 or 6, whatever, with vegetables and fats, somehow that doesn't constitute a meal in his mind. Right? I think you know better. I think you and I are going, well, he even wrote on the board, meal 1, meal 2. He has a little bit of funny math here. Watch this clip right here. He talks about a 5-hour window. So you eat at 1. There's a 5-hour window till 6, and then you eat, let's say, from 6 to 7. So technically, there's a 5-hour gap, but there's a 6-hour eating window. He actually is doing 18 and 6. All right, 18-6, OMAD. But notice what he says here about how long your fast is.
So that's a 5-hour eating window. So that will give you a 20-hour fast.
Right? So kind of funny that 20-hour fast, at best it's an 18-hour fast. You could say 19 if you only count the gap in between 1 and 6, but if you start eating at 6, you see my point. Kind of cute math. I don't know. Common Core math for those of you who have young kids. I don't get it. Now, he makes a couple other comments about whether or not it's a meal or not. Let me just show you these 2 clips really quickly back to back on how you don't have to wait for that 1 meal. Some people have a hard time with that. And then how I still think it's 2 meals. And notice what he says in these 2 clips.
You're not waiting all day long to actually have that 1 meal at dinner time. Plus, you're not stuffing yourself with that second meal. Most people are not as hungry if they've consumed a big protein meal in the first part of the day. And so it seems to satisfy your digestion as well.
So whether or not the first meal, so he talks about a high protein meal to start. I believe both meals should have high protein. Again, if your goal is to minimize muscle loss and hopefully add a couple of ounces in 2021, then both those meals, don't be fooled. They should both be high protein. Right? Make no mistake. And I mean, how much protein can you eat in a meal? Times 2. Okay. I personally like to eat 3 and if not 4 meals. When I'm not doing 18 and 6 on my days off, I'm 12 with 4 boluses of protein. That's important to me. That may not be important to you, but I definitely want to minimize any muscle loss. I'm 52 now, so I'm looking to minimize sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. It just inherently happens to everybody as they age, but I wouldn't mind in my 50s adding another pound or 2 of muscle. I think that'd be a cool goal. So to me, I distribute, again, on the video down below that I'll link to, shows how to protein distribute to maximize muscle protein synthesis. And so you may adopt that as well. But nonetheless, you can see how Dr. Berg just poking a little fun, can't do some math, and also thinks that a snack, for some reason, I'll call it a snack, even though he considers it a meal in his images, really is taking OMAD and moving it to 2. Hey, but on that note, I just wanted to have some fun with you. If this is the first time to my channel and you haven't yet, why don't you subscribe? I put out a couple of videos a week in this keto, Atkins, low-carb, intermittent fasting space. Sometimes it's a fun one like this. It's just something triggers me. And other times it'll be questions. The best questions, by the way, down below get turned into videos just like this one. So please do. If you have a comment or a question, most of my videos are driven by questions, and I do appreciate them. But on that note, thanks so much for your time. I'll see you in the next one.